Your future self is already living the life that you want, but you're still carrying around the beliefs that say that you can't. In this video, you're going to break free from those limitations and step into the version of yourself that already has it all. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, PhD, ordained minister of metaphysical sciences, also the author of The Future Self Frequency, available at thefutureselffrequency.com. When it comes to you actually becoming your desired, ideal future self, there are some things that you have to recognize, and that is where you are now and what's stopping you, what's preventing you, what's in your way when it comes to creating a lifestyle that you desire, when it comes to actually being the future self that you see yourself ultimately being. But sometimes you have those voices in your head, you have those ideas, those limiting beliefs, those, interesting paradigms of reality that you think is locked in and permanent, but really isn't, that prevents you from actually being that true self, because my belief is that, and this is from 30 years of experiences and experimentation and studying spirituality, that the things that you desire, the things that you want in life, the way that you want to live is actually the way you're supposed to live. It's actually your true self. It's not a matter of you trying to deviate from what you're supposed to be. I think we think that if we have this perfect life, that it doesn't align with what we're supposed to be, that we're supposed to essentially sacrifice our own desires and what it is that we want in life in order to achieve a particular purpose, a God-given purpose. Now, here's the thing. God isn't separate from you. So God communicates to you your purpose by giving you the desires, the clues, right? Giving you the insight, though very limited right now because you haven't practiced the ability of awareness and really getting into what your consciousness is trying to tell you and lead you to. But essentially, your dreams, your desires, your aspirations, those are leading you to that God-given purpose. You see, what you desire is not separate from the purpose that you feel God has for you. As soon as you recognize that God is speaking to you through your desires, through that dream that you have, that curiosity that you have, the wonder that you have, when you recognize that, then you are able to actually learn to listen to God, listen to that divinity within you, listen to that higher self, So you have to recognize that limiting beliefs are probably, a term that you've heard over and over and over again in spirituality. But let's get clear about it in a sense that your limiting beliefs are thoughts that simply you've accepted as truth. And those truths essentially hold you back, right? They create a space of being blind to the infinite possibilities. They create blinders that don't serve you, are, really out of pocket and misaligned with who you are. Now, when we get into where these beliefs come from, well, they came from how we were brought up in life, parents, family, culture, society, even what we've watched growing up as children. Now, you come to a point, though, as an adult where you recognize, even though it is a subconscious, unconscious recognition that those beliefs don't align with who you truly are because things manifest like anger, frustration, bitterness, depression, right? All those things are basically expressions or signals communicating to you that, hey, this is not how we are supposed to be living our lives, right? This is not what you are really meant to be doing because it's not what you want to do. And what I mean want to do, I mean like truly desire doing. And so, yes, there are times where you have to, compromise a little bit. You got to negotiate a little bit. Yeah, sometimes you have to work that job to make a living in order to support you in pursuing that dream. Yes, you have to feed the children, feed your kids, feed your family, take care of your, partner and what have you, your family. There are things in which we have to acknowledge, yes, responsibility, and overall being a good, decent person. But ultimately, we want to really focus in on making sure that all those things are circling one major point, one major focus, and that is the fulfillment of you in your life, you know? So, yeah, sometimes temporarily, whether it be a few years, you have to acknowledge, right, the societal responsibilities that come with living in this in civilization in this world and wanting to be a good person and taking care of the people you love. Great. But you must not ever neglect who you are and what fulfills you. You must make sure that is a priority, you know, in a way that you acknowledge, when we get in the airplane, when they say if something happens, put the oxygen mask on you first before you put it on the person that you love. That is because if you are not taken care of, then you cannot take care of those you love. The same thing applies here. If you're not fulfilled in life, right, then you are essentially, this may sound harsh, no good to anybody else, right? Because if you're not happy, then you're not spreading love and truly giving love to the people you love. So you have to take that seriously. Never neglect yourself, So you have to recognize the stories we often tell ourselves to distract us from really recognizing what it is that you want, right? The stories like, I'm not good enough. I can't afford that. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too black. I'm too white, right? I'm too feminine, masculine, right? Whatever the story is, it doesn't matter because the point is this thing that you desire, this echo, this calling from your future self to you is actually what matters most, is actually the thing that you're meant to do, is actually the thing that is your purpose, you see? So you cannot neglect it. You neglecting that means you neglect happiness, fulfillment, success, And yeah, sometimes you have to face your fears in order to do it. In fact, chances are, in order for you to actually become your future self, your true self, facing your fears is a part of that. That is part of the hurdles that comes with personal transformation, happiness, fulfillment, success, So you have to recognize that these limiting beliefs, they aren't fact, okay? What they simply are is just filters, right? They are filters that allow you to not deal with the real issues, but to just simply, you know, look at it or give yourself, it's like giving yourself excuses, the excuse that, oh, I can't go and I can't do diets or I can't change my food intake because my family, we're anemic, so I cannot go vegan. I can't go plant-based, even though statistically we understand plant-based diets are essentially the healthiest diets, right? Or I can't go running because my knees, maybe my knees hurt, things of that nature, right? Now that may be more factual, but you can do other things. Okay, you have knee pains, let's go. How about cycling, bike riding? Sure, that works. Same cardio, engagement, stimulation. Let's do that. So we don't want to allow these filters to prevent you from recognizing that you are in charge of this. Anything that you desire, you must take the lead in creating that, you know? And if you don't challenge these limiting beliefs, essentially they'll keep you stuck in the same place. And anything stuck it's just not in accordance with universal law, right? The universe, when you look around, it is constantly changing. That is what the universe does. It changes, it expands. You as consciousness is expanding. Your body is constantly changing. Now, the direction by which it changes toward is up to you. You, as in self, all encompassing of consciousness, ego, subconscious, conscious mind, unconscious, that collectively is changing moment to moment. You're constantly in flux. You're never stagnant, and you should be changing toward that which you desire, toward the goals that you have in your life, the desires you have in your life, your passions, your curiosities, all those things. And if you're not doing that, it results in depression, anger, frustration, right? Feeling a sense of loss. You do not want that, because why? That is not meant for you. You are a creator. Your job is to create, So by holding on to these limiting beliefs, right, you essentially are blocking your growth. You're blocking your growth. You are blocking your dreams. And essentially, the bottom line is you are blocking your true self. So it's important that you learn to identify these limiting beliefs. You start by paying close attention, especially to your self-talk. Now, for many of us, it's not in practice to listen to the dialogue that's going on in your mind. So I would say start with recognizing what it is that's coming out your mouth. When you're having conversations with friends, families, even complete strangers. For example, I went into a store the other day, and somebody came in the store. First off, the front desk, the teller, the cash register, she was greeting everybody beautifully. And I came in, she greeted me. I said, thank you. I greeted her back. Somebody else came, followed. She greeted them. He said, wow, you really make me feel special when I come in. She said, because you are. And he said, no, I'm not. So there's a conversation there that he's having, and that was articulated and expressed out of his own mouth. That was an opportunity for him to recognize that, yes, I understood maybe what he meant when he said he's not special, but he needs to recognize that he is special and that he is unique and that there is nobody like him, right? And so the same needs to be said for you in terms of when you speak and say certain things. Are you speaking in terms of putting yourself in a position of failure, or that you're not ready, or that you're not capable? Are you putting in yourself in a conversation of like, well, I'll try, or I can't do this, or maybe I can't do that, or you can do it because you're special and I can't do it? Is that part of your conversation? Be mindful about that, because when you're mindful about that, then you will understand that the conversation you're having is a limiting belief system that, you can actually transform. You can transform and learn to really see that your conversation is one of putting you in a space of limitations, putting you in a space of seeing that, you know what, there are limiting beliefs that I have about myself. Will you be telling the things that you tell yourself? Would you tell that to, say, a young child who you recognize has the potential to be whatever it is that they desire? Chances are not. Would you tell that to your best friend, the person you care about? Chances are probably not. So it's important that you pay great attention to what it is that you're saying to yourself, about yourself. Recognize these patterns, recognize how it's important to, recognize and know what do you say, right, to yourself when you're trying to do something new, especially. Because it's easier when we have done something numerous times to take it for granted, right? Like, oh yeah, I do this thing. But when somebody else sees you doing it, they're like, yo, that's amazing. Why? Because it's new to them, right? But you have been doing it endless amount of times. That is when you need to really take into account your ability to actually evolve, to actually become better, right? Now, as it relates to what it is that you desire, for some reason, many people tend to really discredit and not see how they can actually pull from all the experiences they've had in life, all the lessons they've learned, all the things that they were able to master, and see if they can master those things, then most certainly the thing that you desire, you most definitely can master it. In fact, you're meant to master it. In fact, all the things you've mastered previously are there or have been mastered in order for you to learn that lesson, in order for you to master what it is that you want, you know? So you have to understand that you need to recognize what you say to yourself when you're doing something new, what you say to yourself when you quote unquote fail, right? Because I say quote because really the only way to fail is to just stop doing it. As long as you are continuing to move forward, continuing to actually pursue, then you're not failing. You're just simply learning and you're paying attention to what adjustments you need to make. You will get there, you know? Or what are you saying to yourself when you dream big? You know, even myself have to be truly aware and truly mindful about what it is that I'm saying to myself when I get big, when I think big. Like when I say, okay, I want to do this, I want to sell this amount of books. Sometimes I say, well, that seems like maybe I'm putting limitation on myself. Why not go bigger? And then there's this back and forth conversation happening within me. And then I see it and I recognize, oh, wow, there's some interesting limiting beliefs here. And you just really want to start by identifying them. When you start to identify them, then you start to gain more power because you start to become more aware of self. You know, it's a good practice to write down any reasons, right? You think you can't have what you want. When you recognize that, you start to break it down. Now, this isn't about absolutely using these tools and these exercises to make up excuses. You must be diligent, focused on the fact that you are using all of these tools and exercises to move forward. All right. To break these things down, dissolve them, you know, and then move forward and learn from them. Okay. Not to just beat yourself up about. All right. So you got to be very responsible and mindful and intentional with these exercises. An awareness practice is to always catch your inner dialogue throughout the day, you know? So be mindful about how you started your day and what it is that you feel, right? Because even that, you're feeling throughout the day or toward the day, or maybe the weekend is over, Sunday is here, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to go to work tomorrow, right? Be mindful about that. Okay. Be mindful about why don't you want to go to work? What does work represent? Why do you feel like work should take away from your ability to be excited, to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be in the moment? Work should not have precedence over your agency to dictate your day. Okay. Because though, yes, maybe you have a responsibility, you have to go to work. Great. Okay, that adds to, it doesn't help wanting to go to work, but those things do not have to be simultaneous, or they do not have to relate directly with how you feel. You know, you got to go to work. Okay, so what? I'm still going to have a good day. I'm still going to enjoy myself while I'm at work. I'm still going to engage and joke and play and laugh and connect with people. Even though if I had a choice, if I had a more of a powerful choice, I probably would not go to work, right? If I didn't have bills to pay and a responsibility, probably would not go, right? So you can acknowledge that, but still do not let that dictate how you feel, what you do. So be mindful about that internal dialogue. All right. Recognize behavior patterns. Notice where you say procrastinate, okay, avoid, where you even self-sabotage, which is something that happens pretty often. You know, your beliefs are hiding in there. You have to identify that. You have to recognize when you are just constantly, say, for example, some people think that self-sabotage looks like being lazy, right? Some people think procrastination looks like, you're trying to be a perfectionist, right? When you try to avoid, you're not dealing with things because you just rather be comfortable and not doing anything, right? Some people think even being busy, right, is the best thing to do. But even being busy can be a sign of a limiting belief system, you see? So you have to be mindful about what it is that you're doing. Is it really in alignment with you achieving your desire, right? You tapping into and being the future version that you desire for yourself to be, you know? Because if you're not looking at those things, then you are basically taking a different course. Now, you still can be happy, fulfilled, and in a place of joy, but you have an idea of the life that you want to live in your mind that you think about at least every day. So when you have to take ownership of that, because it's going to continue to haunt you, right? For lack of a better word. And nobody wants to be haunted. So you want to recognize that there are things you have to do in order to align and take that trajectory of self, you know? So be mindful about that. You got to challenge and you got to replace those limiting beliefs, you know? So once you spot them, okay, it's simply about acknowledging where they came from, but refuse them. Don't accept them. Don't take them on as a reality, you know? You need to question them. You need to even confront them, you know? Ask questions like, is this actually true? You know? Because that's one of the most powerful things. So, for example, a way that I use that is when we are in relationships with people. Okay, say for example, you go on a first date, you meet somebody, you're headed off, the date goes great. Okay, within the community, there's a conversation of when somebody is supposed to call right after the first date. Is it the next day? Is it 2 days? Is it 3 days? I think it's all absolutely ridiculous. But some people say, well, the man is supposed to call. The woman is supposed to call, right? All these different belief systems. And so what happens then is when we have an assumption that the other person is supposed to call us, what are we doing? We're making up stories. Then we get in our feelings and we get upset about it. Now, this is where you come in and you ask the questions. Is this actually true? Is it actually true that because this person didn't call me, that they're not interested in me? Is it actually true that because this person didn't call me, that they don't care or want to see me again? The only way you get to find out if it's true or not is if you actually call them, right? You actually have a conversation with them, you know? And hopefully chances are they're going to be somebody who communicates authentically. They may even say, I'm glad you called. I was waiting for you to call, right? And then you can open up a dialogue of understanding like, hey, how about we not move forward in our relationship with just assumptions? If you want to call and talk to me, you call. If I want to call and talk to you, I'll call. How about that? You make an agreement, all right? That's something that's real. That's something that's actually true, you know? Another question is, where did this belief come from? You can continue asking yourself, where did this belief come from? Where did this belief about money come from? Where does this belief about health come from? Right? And then you can follow your subconscious and it'll lead you to the answer. Oh, when I was 6 years old, this happened. When I was 12 years old, this happened. This person said this thing happened to me or that person, and that traumatized me or that shifted how I saw the world. You know, now another question, what proof do I have that says the opposite is also true? You see? So you start to really play with how you're going to confront and question these beliefs, because that'll help you in ascending beyond them. You know, it allows you to then flip the script, you know, take the negative belief and then turn it into a positive affirmation or confirmation, you know? So you can say something like, I'm not good enough, right? That becomes, I'm more than enough. I'm growing every day, you see? And that's essentially how you begin to break down these limiting beliefs and turn them into something that will allow you to move forward more empowered, you know? The reality is you want to embrace your future self. You don't want to resist it, right? When you start to understand that those desires, those dreams, those aspirations, when you start to understand that that is your future self calling you, beckoning you, then you realize that by you not dealing with the limiting beliefs, right, they're going to continue to limit you to being that future self. And so by addressing these limiting beliefs, you are then embracing the future self, you know? So it's important to visualize the version of you who already has what you want. You see that person, feel their confidence, step into their mindset. When you start to do that, then you become that person. You become that version of you, right? It manifests now. So you have to live with the intention, right? You have to keep expanding yourself. Turning into your future self just doesn't happen. Okay. It just doesn't happen simply by the nature of, gravity, so to speak. It takes effort. It takes intention, right? You must stay present, right? But you also must be conscious of your choices and your decisions. You see, mindfulness is important. Gratitude is important. Always check in with yourself, monitor yourself, check in with yourself. Ask yourself, what did I do today that aligned with the ideal, desired future version of myself? Find something. Then over the course of time, right, you find that that one thing is consistent every single day. Great. Then incorporate something else. Then those two things become consistent every single day. Find something else. Those three things. And guess what? Eventually, over the course of time, right, you're becoming, you're aligning. You are your future self. You see? So the limiting beliefs are not something that we want to avoid. They're essentially gateways to the future self. You know, you don't need to fix your past. You don't need to, address trauma, right? All you need to do really is embody the version of you who's already free, and the moment you let go of the old story, you simply are stepping into the new life. It's just that simple. Takes a little bit of work, but it's simple. Anyway, I hope this helps you. Thank you so much. Feel free. Go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and guess what? I got a free gift for you. I'll give you the first chapter of The Future Self Frequency, the Deluxe Transformation Edition. Okay, it'll be the whole first chapter. So when you read this first chapter, you'll understand exactly why you should and absolutely must purchase the Future Self Frequency at futureselffrequency.com, as well as my Future Self Journal, which will guide you through and how to connect and communicate with your future self to help and support you become that future version of yourself a lot quicker than you think. Thanks again. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.
I've never been the type to chase hype. I don't do trends. I don't believe in quick fixes, but I do believe in truth. And the Future Self Frequency met me with truth I couldn't ignore. This wasn't about manifesting things for the sake of it. It wasn't about pretending to be happy or spiritual or successful. It was about alignment. Quiet, consistent alignment with the version of me I had buried under years of survival and responsibility. Reading this book wasn't a rush. It was a return. A return to clarity, to intention, to peace. I didn't need another motivational speech. I needed a reminder of who I really am. That's what this book gave me. And the journal? It's now a part of my morning routine. Simple, direct, sacred. Writing to my future self changed the way I make decisions. It made the invisible visible. I'm not here to convince anyone, but if you're ready to lead yourself instead of waiting to be rescued, read the book, use the journal, and start showing up like the future you is already here, because she is.